Hey everybody, welcome to the Uptrend. We're just giving folks a few more minutes to trickle in. I see lots of peeps coming in the door, so we're giving everyone just a second to get settled, but wanted to say hello and welcome, and very excited to have you all here with us today. I'm joined by my lovely colleague Tom Porter. We will certainly kick this thing off in just one more minute. We'll give folks a few more minutes to trickle in, since I see lots of people just making their way here. So today I'm really excited to kick off the Uptrend, which is going to be our content series. And the reason why we call it that is just because we're all about doing good in our email community and helping all those metrics that you want to trend up head in the right direction. So this is a chance for us to chat, commiserate, learn new things together, and hopefully have a little fun as well. So our first topic is really all about re-engagement. And this is kind of a perennial topic for us. We're always talking about it. And, you know, the should I, when, how is something that's always on the top of our minds. But we add this reality to it because this economic reality that we're in certainly impacts how we're approaching re-engagement. And we're really going to get into why that is and how you can do re-engagement the right way, even when there may be pressure and there may be tough times and tough circumstances. So I think we've had a lot of people filter in here, which is great. I think we can go ahead and kick things off. So first wanted to say, hi, I'm Laura. I work kind of spreading the good news about Inbox Monster on our brand and our marketing efforts. I also, for the last decade, worked on email creative for some big enterprise programs in the agency world. So I've spent a lot of time thinking about email and content strategy and creative. And I'm joined by Tom.
Hi, Laura. My name is Tom Porter, and I am a senior deliverability consultant here at Inbox Monster. And my role at this company is basically to help senders get in the inbox and stay in the inbox. So really excited to be here on our first Uptrend and to talk all about re-engagement.
Okay, so for the audience out there, we want this to be super interactive. And so throughout, we're going to throw some polls out there. And we're going to do our first poll right now. This is just a test to see if everyone's paying attention. So what we're going to do right here is play a little two truths and a lie. So Tom is spelled with an H, which may be a little unusual. And I have asked him about that. And so there's three things here. One of them is a lie. So I'm going to read them out, and then I want you to vote on the one that is not true. So he loves Tom York from Radiohead, and that's why he added an H to his name. He had a great Uncle Tom, who was actually a Canadian hero and very famous, who is named after him. Or Tom was an easier email address to get in the 90s. So can you all see my poll?
Can we get the Jeopardy music going? Oh,
there are some answers coming in. There are some answers coming in. One of them is not true. Remember, you're finding the falsehood here. We're going to give them one more second to answer. Your poll is over on the right-hand side, so this is a test of who's paying attention. So far, I got to say, you guys are not winning. Nope. I'm going to give away the answer. Tom loves Radiohead, and it was an easier email to get in the 90s. He has no great uncle who's a war hero. I'm sorry, that's a lie. That is a lie. But now we know, you all know how to do the poll. There's also a chat function over here, so please send your emoji responses, reactions as we're talking. And there is also a little question icon where you can ask questions. So please do all of those things. throughout the presentation. And we're just going to give a 5-second overview here of what Inbox Monster is. For anyone who doesn't know, we have kind of a variety of folks who have signed up here. Some of them clients, some of them friends, some of them other industry folks that we don't know. So Inbox Monster is a deliverability and signals platform. We provide a lot of data, intelligence, visualizations on your email performance. And we can also handle everything related to deliverability through our professional services team, who is top notch, which Tom is a part of. End of the day, we want our customers to have the biggest impact and land every email that they send. So that's who we are. We won't talk about ourselves anymore. But today, what we want to do is talk about why now, why you should care about re-engagement, what your plan of attack is. This is a 3-step plan that we're going to go through. We have a little checklist here of like, whoa, approach with caution. And then we're going to look at a creative hall of fame. So just some examples to get the wheels turning about what you can do, tactics to steal, ideas to steal, to make your re-engagement campaigns better. So as I mentioned, ask questions throughout, please, and comment and interact with us. We would love that. So first up here, I just wanted to set the tone of why we care about this right now. As I said, re-engagement is always important, but why now? And I have a few stats here that I think tell a story about that. Number one, inflation was at its highest point at the end of last year at 9%. Everything costs 9% more. And we know this sort of downward spiral that has happened afterwards with huge rounds of tech layoffs, lots of marketing budgets being frozen and hiring budgets being frozen. So that's kind of the climate that we're in, where there's just a lot of uncertainty about what's going to happen next. But what we also know, even in this climate, is that email still has a huge return on investment. So for every dollar that you spend, you're going to get $36 in return. We've all seen this stat. It's been kind of an enduring stat about email. It's still true today. And so often, email is asked to work harder in hard times. We saw this in the last downturn, and we see it with a lot of our clients already happening right now. Really interesting study that came out from Email on Acid and Mailjet, where they surveyed just digital marketers in general in our space. This came out last month, I believe, or it could have been a couple of months ago now. But where are people going to spend their money? Where are they going to spend their time whenever times are tough? And 63% of those marketers said, I'm going to spend it on email if I have to choose in my marketing mix where to double down. So we kind of see this whole thing playing out where, email is being asked to work harder. And then the final quote that I have here is a really great article from Alchemy Works, who I believe is coming to check out this content today. A great article and a great quote here about re-engagement. And basically the idea that you may have 30% or 40% of your list that's inactive. And those people saw the value in your business and your email program at one time. And so re-engaging them instead of going out and finding a new customer can be maybe a more valuable thing to do. And so starting to see this list of inactive subscribers as a little bit of gold for your email program. So that's all to set it up. But then I can hand it over to Tom to say, but wait.
But wait.
Wait.
Exactly. And thanks, Laura. That's a great setup. And we know that re-engagement, when it's done correctly, it can be this beautiful thing, right? You've already done all the hard work to go out and get these subscribers and customers. And to bring them back to life, it's just amazing. You're like that heroic ER doctor, right? You're bringing the patient back to life. It's amazing. But there's a cautionary tale in there too. And that's why we've included this great photo. It can be the start of a horror movie too. So we want to make sure that email marketers and senders are just aware of all the potential dangers that can come along with sending a re-engagement strategy. So again, we just want to make sure everyone is prepared, because it's a great thing, but also there are some dangers. We just want to make sure everyone knows them. So again, try and be George Clooney from ER and not like the Frankenstein character.
That's the perfect visual for us to walk away with. And our goal today is to tell you how, definitely to do that. So, kind of step one in this process is really understanding
Yeah,
why.
and the big
Right?
reason here is understanding why, and hopefully we understand why so we can correct that behavior. Understanding why people are slipping away, so that maybe we can understand and work to address these issues, because we don't want to just bring them back and then have the same cycle repeat. So one of the things we really want to focus on here is frequency and relevancy. So are you mailing too often? That's a really common reason why people start to slip off a list, is they just receive too much mail from a sender. So this one's a little tough. You kind of have to take a look in the mirror and just analyze, are you mailing too much? And just because someone's given permission for you to contact them, they haven't given permission for you to bombard them. So we really need to analyze, are you sending too much? Another thing to think about here is your content and offers still relevant? You might need to shake up your creative. You might need to look at what kind of offers you're sending to people if they just aren't biting anymore. Another factor here too to look at is seasonality. So is seasonality impacting user interest? And you'll be able to see this if you notice a lot of kind of ebbs and flows in people joining your list and then maybe falling off after. This is a really interesting thing to look at in terms of user interest. Um,
Yeah, I know we were talking about earlier,
yeah,
thinking about the buying cycle. I used to work for a car, email program, and people buy on average every
it's
seven
hard for
years.
email.
And
Yeah.
so, what do you do? Right? Can you re-engage them if they're not ready to
Hmm.
buy a car? There's not much you could say. So, what's the type of content that you can provide
For sure.
instead? So, it goes all along with frequency and relevancy is
And that's where
what's
we've
that
seen a
purchase
lot
cycle
of
too.
companies lean to more like newsletters and blogs, just trying to create that content to keep people interested in between the purchase cycle. Um, but yeah, definitely look
Yep.
at that and look at, are you mailing too often too? You have to, it's a tightrope, and you have to kind of find the right balance to make sure that people are still interested and aware of your brand without mailing too much. And the next point we want to bring up here is technical setup. And by that, I mean, is your program set up correctly? Are messages landing in the inbox? A lot of people, they realize that their subscribers are slipping away because they're simply not even seeing the messages that are being sent. So you work so hard to have this really great content and creative and offer. And if it's landing in the inbox and people just aren't having the opportunity to click on that email, that's really tough. So we want to make sure that your technical setup is correct and messages are landing in the inbox as intended. And the last point I'll bring up here about setup too is what metrics are you relying on to define that active audience? We know with Apple MPP, suddenly open rates were inflated, and it becomes a little harder for people to define their audience if they can't really trust the metrics they're seeing. So you kind of have to read the tea leaves in terms of the metrics you're looking at to really get a 360 view. And things we would recommend looking at is, do you have a high bounce rate? Because that could indicate that you're blocked at certain ISPs. Do you have a very low open rate compared to normal messages? That could show that you're landing in the spam folder. You could have like a really high open rate, but really low clicks. So maybe your offer, your creative just isn't landing, or people are clicking, but they're just not converting. So all these things are really interesting factors to look at into why your users might be slipping away. And the last point we want to bring up is natural attrition. So we do expect a certain amount of people to just leave the file naturally. And we should make it as easy as possible. And the reason we say this, from a deliverability standpoint, I would much rather have someone leave the list by hitting that unsubscribe button rather than marking a message as spam or just staying on the list and disengaging. So it's much better, I think, to have people unsubscribe. And it gives a good opportunity too to capture data on your way out. You can give a little survey to understand why people are leaving the file. And I think it's just a really good opportunity to give like a parting gift or like a last impression, right?
Yes, and I would love to talk more about that. I think there's a lot of opportunity from a content perspective and from a strategy perspective to do a lot with this data on the way out on this idea. So, you know, we think a lot about inbox signals and reading the tea leaves and taking all of the kind of signals into account here. But I think this is a moment to be very direct and just ask. So being very overt and asking the customer, like, hey, do you still want to be around? And it's okay if they say no. As you mentioned, it would be better for them to say, you know what, nah, I'm not interested. I've moved on. I've moved locations or interests or what have you. And so one classic way to do that is to just give them that binary choice of yes, I want to stay, no, I don't. And I really love this example from Urban Outfitters in Europe because it uses humor. And this is a great moment for some self-deprecating humor to say like, hey, we want to cry a little inside, but we'll understand either way. If you're done, you can be done. And it allows the user to choose. And so you can collect that data. So that's kind of like an entry point for how we can approach this. This is also a really, really excellent moment to start, experimenting with interactive email. So both of these are great examples. This Expedia email on the right, it's just using state changes to hide and show different buttons, but it's making it incredibly easy to give that feedback. I'm happy, I want to stick around, I'm not happy. And then all of these different attributes underneath populate and the user can actually choose very easily without even typing, can say why they want to stay or why they want to go. So I think this is just a super intuitive and usable example of how you can collect that data on the way out to improve your own program. The email on the left-hand side, on the other hand, uses a form field in the inbox. And so this is something experimenting with AMP for email. And so AMP for email is creating those more app-like experiences in the inbox. Of course, you have to put in a lot of work. Primarily, it's showing up in Gmail. So you're creating two versions of this email, one really an AMP for email audience, and then the other your regular audience. But for a high-value email like this, it may be worth it to get that feedback. And in this case, it's an open form field where someone can type in anything. So this is a chance for us to give you another poll. So we are just curious, who is trying interactive emails? Has anyone dipped their toe in this water? Even though AMP was around since 2015, it's been very slow to adoption. And now I'm seeing more and more tools out there that are helping make AMP more accessible, make interactive emails more accessible for more brands. So we have a little poll on the right. If anyone is experimenting with AMP for email, would love to hear about that. So last but not least, just talking about creative tactics here. If you don't want to give that binary choice, you can also give the option for your user to opt down instead of opt out. And this is a really great Bonobos example where, the parameter that they've used is how often do you want to hear from them? As a retailer, they're probably sending an email a day. I really love their email program. I subscribe to it, but it might be too much for some people, especially maybe a dude who's not shopping that much. So how can you, allow them to just opt down and save them from actually opting out? The one cautionary tale I have about that is it can make things really complicated because then you have to think through your suppressions and you have to think through your sending strategy and you have to think through all sorts of different things to make sure that you're paying off.
Exactly. Yeah, you have to promise and then you have to deliver. Yeah.
You have to deliver on that, and it can get really hard because you really have to think through on an individual subscriber basis, how are you going to suppress them from getting more than X emails per month? So it can get complicated. But if you're saving people who are really interested in your brand,
for sure. And I like setting this kind of funny tone too, because it could help bring someone back later on too.
Sure. Absolutely. I mean, they'll remember your brand. Maybe they don't want to hear from you all the time, but when they're thinking about, oh, I need something special, they think about your brand. Great. Okay, so that was all step one.
Step
What about
two
step
is
two?
understanding your email health. And I'm going to pause here and just kind of define a couple terms that we bring up a lot. And the first is deliverability. And just so we level set what we mean by that, deliverability means our messages landing in the inbox as intended. Because you hit send and a message could bounce, but it could deliver, but you're not quite sure if it has delivered to the junk folder or into the inbox. So understanding deliverability, that means our messages landing in the inbox. And we're mentioning email health here. And what I mean by email health, these are all the factors that could go into having good deliverability, right? So is your sending reputation strong with the big ISPs? Do you have low spam traps? Do you have good user engagement? Are you landing on block lists? All of these are kind of factors that wrap up into your email health and cause you to have good deliverability. So before you start a re-engagement program, we want to make sure that you understand your email health, because we know there are some inherent risks with a re-engagement strategy. We want to make sure that you have good email health before you start. So it's kind of like running a marathon. You want to check with your doctor to make sure your heart can take the strain. And a lot of people, they might need to do some training before running that marathon. So same with re-engagement. If your email health isn't in the position to take that strain, you might need to work on it and improve that sending reputation. So know the risk before you start. And the second point is educate others. So we know a lot of people are getting pressure from above to reach back into the file and just mail everybody. But we want to make sure that email senders are armed with the knowledge about deliverability and email health, so they can push back a little bit if someone's instructing them to just mail everybody. So I think this is a really important part. I think anyone who's instructing you to mail all the way back, maybe they don't understand the impacts it could have to your deliverability. So make sure you kind of understand all the potential dangers. And the last point in this is don't fly blind. Get more insight. So we do recommend using a tool like Inbox Monster to monitor your deliverability, especially while you're doing re-engagement. Because if you're doing re-engagement and you notice that you're getting blocked at certain ISPs or your reputation has fallen, this is a really good chance to course correct in real time. So using a tool like Inbox Monster gives you the ability to kind of monitor your metrics in real time.
Yeah,
That's
set up
right.
those
That's
notifications.
it.
You got to know if something's going wrong. That's too scary not to. Awesome. So, okay, step three. This is our final step here in our magic formula of re-engagement. Understanding your subscribers and kind of making a plan for how you're going to think about the risk tiers within your list and how you're going to approach them gingerly. So how do you
and
recommend
for
thinking about
this,
this?
we want to kind of move away from thinking of your list as just a monolithic thing. We want you to think in terms of tiers, and specifically risk tiers. So we want you to identify the people in your audience who are the safest people to mail. And these safe people are your best friends, right? These are the people that engage often. These are the repeat customers. There's lots of email engagement, and you know that there's someone home, right? That someone is answering or looking at these emails, and that's a safe email. Yeah.
You know everything about them, like the fact that they like ice cream and flamingo shirts and the
Or
Arizona
St.
Cardinals, for
Louis. We're not
example.
quite sure. We don't know where this
Or
hipster is from. Yeah.
yeah, what Cardinals is that?
Yeah. But yeah,
This hipster. But you at least if he's a
that's
good
right.
subscriber, you've got more clarity
And
on him. Yeah.
and the next kind of portion of your list that we want you to be aware of, these are the people, these are the acquaintances, the people that you know were active at some point, but you haven't really heard from them recently. Maybe at one point they were a customer, but they haven't purchased in a while. And I think this is a really great audience to look at in terms of re-engagement. These people, just the fact you know that they were once at home, there was someone behind that email address, potentially a customer, I think this is a really great section of your audience to target for re-engagement. And the last tier that we want to educate people on are the higher risk part of their audience. And these are the people that they just haven't heard from in quite a while, right? There might just not be anybody home behind that email address. And these are the riskier people that if someone's urging you to mail into this segment, we would definitely want you to think about it and maybe set a limit on how far back you're going to go into this audience, because we're not quite sure about these people.
So, Tom, I'm going to ask this question that everybody asks, and perhaps they will today, which is maybe annoying, but like, how risky is too risky? Is it 6 months? Is it 1 year? Is it a year and a half? And
it could really
how do you
depend
determine that?
based on the file. But yeah, anyone who hasn't, if they haven't engaged with your email for over a year, they definitely start to get a little risky at that point. And it's not to say you can't re-engage or try to re-engage, but it definitely comes with a little more risk. And we would definitely recommend you run this hygiene before that kind of tactic.
Gotcha. Okay, so we have a little checklist here. And it's like, if we've done these 3 steps and we feel like our health is good, we understand why they were slipping before, and also we understand who we want to send to. We've created a target. What's next? What's the fight? How do we land the plane?
I just mentioned this, but running this hygiene, I think, is a really good tactic. It's a great tool to use to mitigate the risk. We always recommend it. And the one thing to note about this hygiene is you don't have to run this hygiene on everyone. If there's a part of your list that you've identified that you're not going to mail, they're just too risky to mail, there's no need to run this hygiene on that audience. That's an inactive file. So just make sure you're segmenting by the portion that you want to mail for this reactivation strategy. And yes, we definitely recommend hygiene for those people. And next, I think we had a poll here, Laura. Are we gonna fire that off?
I was gonna say I have one last. It's more than a poll. Nice. It's a quiz. There is a right answer. Okay, so here's my question: what is the best way to do re-engagement? Should I do a batch re-engagement campaign? Should I do a multi-touch journey that's triggered by something, or should I just blast them all one time? And I want to see what people say, because Tom has opinions, about the right answer. Oh, I'm loving the answers.
Yeah.
Everyone is jumping on to the multi-touch journey.
And we're not seeing a ton of one-time blast, which is great. The word blast is very telling. Yeah. So again, we want to make sure that this is a strategy. So when we set up this re-engagement program, we want to make sure that we're thinking about it differently than your regular program. We're not just adding these names back into the regular mailing. We want to make sure that it's a journey that people are on to try and re-engage. So the creative looks a little different. It's a more alluring offer. We want to make sure that it's very personalized, hyper-targeted. Just make sure you're taking all the steps to bring these people back. And we want to give them a few opportunities. This isn't just a one-time send that they receive and either they re-engage or they didn't, right? So we want to give people a few touch points to try and get them back. But we need to respect, if they don't re-engage, then we should be moving these names to an inactive file. And also, we don't want to kind of push people over the edge with this email. So we want to make it easy for them to unsubscribe as well, if that's their choice. So we really have to be respectful of the people that we're trying to bring back. And if they want to leave, then we need to make it very easy for them to leave as well.
Excellent. Okay, so if you do all that right, should you just keep doing the same stuff with your email program?
No, obviously we should try and, not to repeat the same mistakes. And one thing I will say, going back to the strategy, the multi-touch journey that we've seen have some great results is the kind of proactive approach, right? The best way is to not let people slip. So If you're going to do a reactivation strategy, we like the approach where it's more based on a time filter. So if you haven't engaged in the last however many months, it will depend. But then you're automatically moved to this kind of journey where there's a re-engagement effort kind of built in. And the reason we like this this strategy is that it's proactive and it doesn't let that email address sit too long, because the longer it sits, the more the risk, right? And the harder it is to bring someone back. Exactly.
Sure.
So this kind of proactive strategy.
The thing I heard you say before, Tom, the thing I heard you say before was that it was an always on re-engagement strategy.
And I think that's just the best way. And we've seen, lots of mailers have success with that, which isn't to say you can't, but I would just be a little more cautious with the inactive strategy where you're just waiting to do an inactive campaign once a year. Those addresses, the longer they sit, the riskier they do become.
Gotcha. Okay, so are you ready for the
of
Hall of Fame here? Okay, so we talked a lot about the strategy and the approach, but what about just some good creative tactics for, what do you say? Like, if you get all this right, okay, great. What are you going to say when you get in touch with people? And so I've gathered just a little Hall of Fame here, and each one of these has a different strategy that, if it makes sense for your brand, is a great thing to pick up and steal. The first one in my Hall of Fame here is Grammarly. I love their email program. They understand the importance of voice and tone, and they have a very funny voice and tone. They also have a very funny illustration style that's woven throughout their program. It's very recognizable. So in this case, they are definitely using humor. And I think, re-engagement is a really great place to use humor, even if you think like, oh, I'm kind of a serious brand. Because at this point, you're really saying, like, if you're not into me, it's okay. Sure. Was it something I said? Was it something I did? There's a lot of ways to weave humor in, and I think Grammarly just does it really, really well. And then this wrinkle in time badge is just a funny nod to the fact that they haven't seen you in quite some time, but you might still be writing words on the internet.
It's beautifully simple too. I'll say that just having that simple button, I really want to push that button and find out what happens. Yeah,
I know. I really want to test that button. When I see a button like that, I'm like, look at that image-based button. I don't know. I want to test the heck out of it, but it's intriguing and it's different. So I like it a lot. The second one in the Hall of Fame here is from Miro. So Miro is kind of a digital whiteboarding tool, and they sent a very brilliant email out a while back after sort of the pandemic was in full swing. And it was just a reminder of their value proposition. The whole world changed. And, I signed up for Miro before the whole world changed. And then afterwards, I'm like, oh yeah, I can really use that tool. So their re-engagement strategy was just to remind about how much value their tool can bring to people. So I thought, just reminding people of why they signed up in the first place and why they engaged with your brand in the first place can be a great thing. Along the same lines, this is InVision, which is another collaboration tool that I have used. And really what they've done with this re-engagement campaign, I think, is brilliant. This is probably one of their highest value pieces of content. It's all about creative and development working together. It's a white paper that's always the top white paper on their site. So maybe you have a piece of content like that just performs really well no matter what for your brand. Trot it back out for your re-engagement campaign. Keep in mind that these folks have not engaged with you in a long time, probably, so they've missed a whole lot. So if there was something that stood out that performed really well, whether it was a product or an offer or a piece of content, this is the place to bring it back out. I think that was brilliant. I have two more here, and then I think we're going to have time for just a few questions. So this is social proof, and always a good way to remind people that they did like your brand and that other people like your brand. But I really like the way Warby Parker put it together in a format that looks like a social feed, but it has their little commentary on it. So consider social proof. If you have some great proof points and you don't want to talk about yourself, let other people do it for you. Yeah, and then just the last point to make about how you're going to execute the creative is thinking about bringing your best offer out. And you might not be able to see it in this case, but I really like the way this is a super conversational tone, but they're bringing out their best offer. For a cosmetics company, it's $20 off. It's their biggest offer, and they're doing it in a way that's fun and true to their brand. And then this is just my last example of a great offer. This is the best offer you would get from Wix, and it's just perfectly executed. It's clear what the offer is. The sense of urgency is clear. The value and benefits are clear. And I just think it's a perfectly executed offer email as kind of your last ditch effort.
Yeah, and it's not just like free shipping. That's 50% off. That's pretty great.
It's pretty huge. Cool. So that was really, our little Hall of Fame that we wanted to bring up. We do have a few questions here that we would love to answer from the audience. So the first one is, if your email list is fairly small, let's say 600, does it impact the
It makes it a little tougher,
approach?
I guess, because it is such a small amount, but I would definitely recommend a lot of the similar tactics I think would apply. It just makes it harder because if you're dedicating, it's a separate creative, it takes a lot more time for a really small pool. But I think it would be worth trying to get these people back for sure. Yep.
Yeah, it starts small, like maybe if you do have 600 people and you've identified a few hundred, start small with them with a simple, straightforward campaign. And kind of build from there. I think re-engagement can be so valuable that it's worth at least investing in one touch.
Exactly. And I would look at too, even if it is a small proportion, I would never really recommend sending your full re-engagement tactic all at once. It's the kind of thing you want to parse out and send a little bit at a time. And the reason is you don't want to dilute your engagement or send up a bunch of negative signals like people unsubscribing, marking a message as spam, or potentially hitting a spam trap. I would add these in a little bit at a time, just so you don't dilute your engagement and send up those negative signals at the ISPs. But yeah, I would definitely, these are still your customers, and you want to bring them back. So definitely try it, but just be aware that even if it is a small amount, it could negatively harm your reputation to send them all at once. So I would definitely send them in little smaller packets.
Smart. Okay, one question here that I see is, do you recommend using a root
for sure,
domain
we knew we were going to get this question. We would not recommend sending a re-engagement strategy from your root domain, right? Because we know it's just inherently risky. You could hit spam traps, you could hurt your reputation. So this is the kind of thing that you want to establish some guardrails. You don't want to send from your root domain, especially, you don't want to hurt your email program. You don't want to block your CEO's messages coming off that root domain. So we would always recommend using a subdomain to send mail. And another note, I wouldn't want to create a subdomain fresh to use for re-engagement because it wouldn't be warm, right? You want to make sure there's a built up, established history from that sending subdomain. So this is the kind of thing where you might need to do some training before you run the marathon, right? But yeah, we would definitely recommend using a subdomain for this. We wouldn't want you to send from the root.
Got it. Okay. And then I think we have time for just one more question, and I think we can probably both jump on this one, but how frequently do we recommend doing re-engagement? And that's where those magic words that you said before come back to me of it should be an always on approach. And if you have a great engagement journey set up with different parameters, maybe there's some dynamic content in there based on their order history or their interactions with the brands, that's great. And it can be, that journey can be triggered based on an activity of a certain time, whatever you decide is the right one. That seems to be the gold standard.
Definitely,
would you agree with that?
I like the always on approach because again, it means those names aren't just sitting there getting older and older. if that isn't an option, a couple times a year for sure, just to kind of mitigate the risk. But yeah, I love that always on approach.
Yeah, that's the standard. And, you know, it's hard to do, especially if you do
Right.
have a smaller list. But you know, the value that you can get out of that is so great. Awesome. Well, this was a great conversation.
Yeah, me too.
I really enjoyed it. It was fun. Hoping that it's one of many. We obviously at Inbox Monster, if you're ever interested in our services, we're at inboxmonster.com. There's some info here if you want to schedule any time with us. We're always happy to chat email, to chat deliverability, to just chat, you know, just chat about anything. And I did mention that, you know, we want this to be a series. We have, you know, some really amazing people around us in our email community. And we're hoping to bring them on here and just grow this thing into a conversation about email. So if anyone has any
Yeah.
ideas of topics that they're interested in covering in the future, you know, we're all ears. And you can always email me. I'm Laura at inboxmonster.com. If you had any, you know, topics that you wanted to see covered, I'm always here and listening. But yes, this has been great. Thank you everyone for tuning in and for asking questions and you know, participating. We really, really appreciate it. And we will definitely be doing this again.
Thanks, everyone.
So we'll see you again soon. Take care. Thanks, y'all.